Alright, so this here is going to be the Summer Sprint 1 wrap-up. Ton of progress this sprint. We
Shouldn't have wished to live in more
got
interesting
some
times.
placeholder art for the class icon. The subclasses still don't have an icon, and this will eventually be replaced with something else. Full disclosure, this is just AI generated slop to hold a spot for right now. And a few other things as we move forward in production will have similar placeholder AI generated content, which will eventually be replaced by art that was made by a real human. That was actually curated and very intentfully made. So in terms of technical progress on the mod, we have changed the number of selectable cantrips from 3 to 2, and this is because we have made a unique version of the mage hand spell,
Still alive.
unique
So,
to the
that's
summoner,
progress.
called Summoner Hand. And unlike Mage Hand, this hand is on its own summon stack and doesn't have a despawn timer. So this hand will persist until it is destroyed or until you long rest. And because it is on its own stack, if,
All's
for
well that
example,
ends
you're playing
not
as
as
the
bad as it
tiefling
could have.
that starts with the other form of Mage Hand, or if you were a mage that had some such spell, you could summon a second one without despawning your Summoner Hand. So I just think that's pretty cool that you can go around the game with 2 spectral hands right behind you. Alright, let's turn her around here. And this also
Can't give
applies,
up now.
for example, to the Gith. However, the Gith's summon hand is not invisible like their psionic hand. However, there are some plans in place to modify that in the future so that the mage hand or the summoner hand when summoned by a Gith is also invisible. But that was outside of the scope of this first summer sprint and will likely be in the second one. On a
Alright.
similar note to that,
now?
we also addressed a couple of bug reports that came in. Namely, one that the Shillelagh spell was not linked to charisma. It is now linked to charisma, and the summoner is now also proficient. If I go to my proficiencies, in quarterstaffs. So the summoner can actually use their starting weapon now, as well as activate the Shillelagh ability, which just functions as the normal Shillelagh, but passes through your charisma instead. There was a similar glitch as well with Produce Flame, where it was producing a flame that wasn't using the charisma score when targeting. So I'll just throw this at somebody. Oh, I missed. And if I open this up, we'll see if we can get to where it did its calculations. And we missed. And you see there, +2 from charisma modifier. So these things are now linked to the appropriate spellcasting stat. Now let's get into some of the changes that came to the Find Familiars. The other big ticket on the summer sprint was to go through and start polishing out all the different tiers of the Summoner Find Familiar. Here on the first tier with the cat, not too much difference. It's really just their HP and their stats, a little bit of a buff to dexterity, wisdom, and that resulted in a slightly better armor class as well. If we move up the tier here to the tier 2 cat, which you unlock at level 4, you'll see his health has doubled. His dex has gone up 1 point, and he now has access to minor illusion. So your summoned cat can now summon a fake cat, which is just kind of funny for me. But this is an ability that the tier 2 cat will unlock. Moving on to tier 3, we add a new ability in addition to the minor illusion. They also gain access to Sacred Flame, which goes through their wisdom stat. So if I open up the cat here, you'll see that at this tier, they have received both 1 more point increase to dexterity, which again increases their armor class, and have also received a bonus to their wisdom score, which will help them actually land Sacred Flame a lot better. So if we look here at the saving throw, you'll see there it is, 8 base plus the 2 wisdom plus its proficiency. Each of the tiers also move up 1 proficiency point. So we start at 2, we go to 3, now we're at 4, and at the final level, the winged cat, we are at 5. So the winged cat does not gain any new spells outside of the minor illusion and, of course, Sacred Flame. But it does gain the fly ability, as he has wings, and he can take to the skies, which will drastically increase its mobility on a combat field, and it gained a fairly decent HP boost. And if we come in here, you'll see its dex is at 18, armor class 17, making it quite difficult to hit, and its wisdom is maxed out at 14. That's the highest that the cat summon will go for this mod. But I'm quite pleased with the progress of the kitty cats. I especially like the idea of being able to utilize the treasure, I believe I'm saying that right, hopefully, the treasure model, since it is so cool and quite drastically underutilized in the game. So yeah, that is pretty much it for the cats. That is not it for this demo.
No, never mind.
So let's
Lovely little
give everybody a little rest here and move on to our next summon. In this sprint, we were able to get through the cat, crab, and the frog. And the next sprint, we will focus on the rat, raven, and spider. But moving on here to the tier 1 crab. Take a look at his stats here. It's 4 HP, so a slight buff to the HP, and a little buff to dex. Actually, I think that is its base dex, but its dex will, I think, increase as it goes. I don't know. We'll see. I have to check the documents. This is all recorded somewhere. With the crab, we were thinking more of kind of like a defensive summon, something that kind of will help the character out and provide some close range protection. The claw ability is already pretty good with the pinch condition that it applies, so not much was changed there. If we go over here to our level 4 character who has the next tier of crab, go ahead and summon him, and he is green, and this crab gains 2 more hit points, and his claw now deals 1 additional point of poison, because he's green, and green is poisonous. So that is our logic behind that. And yes, poisonous crabs do exist. I looked it up. I made sure before adding poison. And yes, so the dex does increase by 1. He goes up in his armor class. We gave the crab pretty decent buffs to its regular armor class as it progresses here through the tiers. Mostly because of the ability it will gain at the 3rd tier once your character is level 8. So I will summon that guy now. Where are you, crab? Come. Here we go. We have the blue crab, where we start getting tiers of defense. So another 2 hit point increase, which doesn't seem like much, but on a crab with 16 armor class, that's pretty decent overall. 13 dex. And this crab gains Aura of Protection. So anything standing near this little guy will gain a +1 to saving throws. So falling in line with that theme of kind of being like a bit of a ward summon. He's pretty hard to hit with his high armor class. Not too high hit points, but you know, pretty hard to hit, pretty small target, decent armor around him, and anything standing near him also becomes harder to hit thanks to the +1 saving throw. And we'll move on to our last tier here with our summoner version of Gale. Let's see here, Find Familiar and Crab. And we will summon the last tier of Crab, which is this kind of gray, ashy looking crab. Gets 2 more hit points, another boost to the dex, and this crab gains Aura of Warding, which will half the damage from all spells of its allies within its range. So yeah, that just sounds OP to me. You know, without even really doing too much playtesting on it, that just feels really good. If you have like a more melee or even just like you know, a summoner that you want to protect, or if you want to position this guy by some of your other summons and help protect them longer in a combat, I think this guy will get a ton of utility use. And that is pretty much it for our changes for crabs.
Still breathing.
So I'll now move on to our last set of changes here, which is the frog. So we'll bring forth the base frog, and the base frog here actually got quite a few changes. Not much actually happened with its stats. We left the stats spare dex pretty much entirely alone. But what we did do is we unlocked Acid Splash for the first tier frog and Poison Spray. So the frog summon is kind of a bit of a glass cannon. He's got 2 hit points, a decent dex, 12 armor class at tier 1, which is higher than most of the tier 1 Find Familiars. And you can give your opponents disadvantage. This is based from the regular Find Familiar frog. But in addition to all those things, we've added the Poison Spray and the Acid Splash. And these spells will use the frog's dex score when calculating saving throw DCs. So all of the frog spells scale based off of its dex stat.
All's well that ends.
So let's take a look at the tier 2 frog. Where are you at? There you are. Crab, hello frog. Alright, so now we have our green frog here. He gained 1 more hit point, keeping in line with the glass cannon theme. In addition to all the other things the lower tier frog had, this frog also gains Chromatic Orb, but can only use poison and acid. Cannot access the other elements of Chromatic Orb, but Chromatic Orb nonetheless, which is a very powerful cast for a summon to have. But again, 3 hit points, so pretty easy to kill. Does have 14 armor class, making him pretty hard to hit, and a dex score of 15. So, yeah, he'll hit really hard, but if he gets hit at all, he's basically off the field.
Never a dull moment.
Let's take a look at the 3rd tier. So we wrap this up. Alright, now we have our second to last frog. Now this one, again, in addition to all the previous abilities, gains Venomous Discharge, which is on some other frogs in the game, but it's a quite powerful spell unique to the frog. And it'll deal quite a lot of poison damage, as well as possibly poisoning the targets it hits, and it does a good AoE range, so I could go after like 3 people right there, and yeah. I started a combat by killing somebody, I guess, but yeah. So, look at that. Literally took them out in 1 attack, and now they're covered in poison that's poisoning other things. Yeah, this is a very powerful spell to have. Let's move to Gale and get him out of the poison. Get him out of the poison cloud. Not looking too good there, Gale. There you go. Now you're looking better. Yeah, so let's take in the last frog here, and the last frog is probably my favorite change changes so far, because it is a reference to an Easter egg in the game. And here we go. We have the last frog, who seems to have a glitch on his stats, so I'll have to double check that one. But he should have 5 hit points. This frog will gain access to the reflective mucus, which increases his armor class 2 more points, is a bonus action, and shoots back any projectile thrown at him to the target's cast. So, yeah, if you've ever had to fight that frog by the hag, you'll recognize this and you'll know just how incredibly good this is. So yeah, I will have to go in and make sure, yeah, he's level 13, but it's not loading his proper stats. So I'll have to go in, let me check. Yeah, it's loading the level 1 frog stats, so I probably forgot to link that up. So we'll do that before release. Or I'll just do it live. You can just do it live. It's the easy one. Come down to Summoner class. Where are you at, Frog? Where are you at? Frog, level 12, because that's the level you unlock it at. Frog itself is level 13. And come down to here. And this won't reflect immediately in the editor till I reload. Let's spell list. Here we go. Yep, Summoner Frog. There we go. We'll just set that up. Just pretend like that was always a thing. And save. Okay. Back in. So yeah, that won't immediately take effect on the frog since he's already in the world. But that will be in effect at the end. He's supposed to have, let's see, what's the previous frog have? Got that. I'll open it up. Yeah, he's supposed to have 19 dex and 14 armor class, plus the boost from dex and 5 hit points. So those are the only changes that actually happened with the final tier frog. And then the very last thing I have to show off here is something that was mentioned by one of our playtesters. And that is you cannot select any proficiency related to charisma. Any proficiency and skills related to charisma, which for a charisma caster seems a little backwards. So we went back, we revisited that concept, and we have now made it. So I'll respec here. We've now made it so that you may select any of the charisma-based spells as one of your proficient skills. So yeah, and that pretty much wraps up Sprint 1.